Alright, this is the about 6th or 7th attempt to get this working, but I think I finally got it. Test geometry, and what you're seeing with these little white triangles are the pivot points that I want to force Unreal to recognize. So the way that we're going to do this is you're going to have your geometry. So we'll have like the goose or the swan or whatever our ship is going to be above this red deal. That's the main geo. And then we have the skeleton. So these things are red because they're manually defined. So we have to create the geometry, and then we have to create the skeleton as well. And then I had to create up with a little naming convention. But then I ended up figuring out that I don't need it to get the automatic pivot points to be created. So you can see those triangles exist. Everything except root. It'll it'll be there. And so whenever we run through this little bit of automation here. So all this stuff in the gray box down here, it'll run through, it'll find the joint concepts, and it marries it with the skeleton. So we create geometry for each point, and then I wrote this auto path, and so it'll automatically create the path here. So it artificially injects the root. What is this called? The pivot. I call it PA for pivot anchor, and so it'll automatically inject the pivot anchor as a parent to the original geometry. So like here for this PA north, it is a child of root, but then the original geometry is now has this additional parent, and so the skeleton, we don't have to specify all that complexity. Like we just say that root and this J north is really all that matters there for us. That's all we really care about as a part name. And then it can get more complicated too, where we have chains, and so that should play pretty nicely. It comes out, and we have all of our geometry ready to go. Upscale it for Unreal, and then we'll kick it out. So we also don't need this export ASCII format, but I was doing that to test the user data just to see how big it is. So see if we're stuffing in any groups or something like that that we could be getting rid of. But I think we're cleaning it out. We've cleaned it out enough. I don't think we're stuffing in, we're not putting any weird data in here now. So this file is pretty tight, the FBX file. And then when we get to Goose, it's going to be much bigger, but accidentally stuffing bits of data in here that aren't needed, it starts to explode out. So, okay, so we'll turn off ASCII. We shouldn't need that anymore. And then we can save to disk. And I've already got it in Unreal imported, and I rigged it up to test already. So now we have, let's just look at the skeleton. So it looks the same. I spent some time thinking there was something wrong with my bones and skeleton and stuff. And maybe there still is, actually, because when I look at other ancient tutorials and stuff, they're not doing what I'm doing in Houdini. They usually already have a skeleton, or they're using these bones. But I can't use these inside of what's called the SOP context. And I don't even know what SOP means exactly. I just know that this is like inside the geometry node. Um, and then this out here is the object level. So you can see this says objects. And then over here, if we go inside of it, it switches to geometry. So you can't do things like create bones in here. They have some of the functionality, and I couldn't say why this matters, but the issue that I'm encountering is that when we export, I think it's at this level, pretty much whatever this transform is here is what the pivot will be for that entire object. So that's not terrible for the whole object, right? Like if the whole object I need a simple pivot point, I can just move the whole thing. But what if I need the children to have their own pivot points as well? Well, I think the way that you're supposed to do it is I actually need to pull out all of these parts and then reassemble them here, which I did try to do, but apparently I never use this. So this is like kind of older school Houdini stuff that I just haven't mastered or learned. And so I tried to do this where I was pulling individual parts and I was going to create, I was effectively going to do this. I was going to do an object merge in the SOP context and pull out all the bones. And then I started to think like, well, that's going to get really tedious and manual for um, bigger objects, like bigger ships. Like it might work for this example, but that's not going to scale very well, and it's going to be a huge pain. Okay, this can probably be deleted now. So I abandoned this approach and decided to like kind of lean into the existing workflow that we already have, which is very simple. We model the geometry. We end up with this point here, and then we make the skeleton. Like that's pretty intuitive. We would just, pretty much dot the geometry with the bits that we want, and we correlate the names with groups. So like here's JSON, for example, which is over here. And then we have a bone that's named JSON. And so the J underscore is a little hint for joint, which this automation uses to differentiate from things like color and stuff. So because we have other bits of automation too that I don't want it to collide, so I use those prefixes to keep it from clashing. So okay, so we have all that in place, and so this works, and it exports to Unreal. Originally, I was using a actual piece of geometry so I could see it. When Unreal imports geometry, and what are we looking at here? Yeah, so we're looking at this. When it imports geometry, I think because I'm not using that appropriate bone structure or I'm doing something wrong. I don't know if there's a way to fix it, if I could put the right attributes in. But it will take the center of the object as that bone location. So it doesn't pay attention to the skeleton rig setup that we do. So even if I specify that this is north x0, well, it's gonna just reset that to the center. And that was like not going to work for us. We could not do that. So now I'm artificially injecting some fake geometry, and I have this prefix PA for pivot anchor. And so the other geometry is still there, and it still sits in the hierarchy. And we don't plan on animating inside of Houdini anymore. So like I really want to try to animate inside of here using control rig. So this should be fine. It's kind of wacky feeling, like, I don't love it, but it does work. So now that we can go in here and you can create, see if I can click on one of these control points. I think I already made them all. Yeah, I did. But you can make one, new control. This model, this one's really tiny. I don't think I've re-imported it yet, but you can make these controls. You can change the size and stuff like that, which you kind of have to do. And then you can drag these in and just create a set transform. And so I started to see how this could be automated. At first it was pretty intimidating with the examples. So this has to be dragged into value, which isn't necessarily clear. And once you specify which bone you want to change, just align it with the text. So like that part we could probably automate because this is pretty repetitive and it'll get a little bit more taxing with larger models. But then when we come in here, we can now pivot the pieces as expected. Like it's actually working at the pivot point, which is really all we need. And then that'll solve the goose problem with the cannon. So with that, I'm going to apply this logic to the goose. So I should be able to, I'm going to yank all of this out. Copy. So at some level, this gray box is probably, I think it's almost ready. Like this needs to come out, actually. Yeah, and put it like up here. So this thing is almost ready for HTA. Like I think I could, this gray box, those little green ones were bits that used to be manual and I've slowly automated. So yeah, I think we could actually convert this to an HDA and then we could effectively just have our own little custom node and we just pass in two inputs. We could do the main geo and the skeleton and then it'll spit out um, this everything we need, the hierarchy, autopath, setup, and then we can do whatever we need after that to get it out. But anyways, let me copy all this again. Actually, now I like regret because the skeleton. Oh, I needed it. Guess I can make a new one actually. I don't need to freak out about it. Because yeah, whatever, it's not going to work for the goose anyways. So cut that. So come into here. No, no, this is the old. This is what currently doesn't work like we need it to. Okay, so all of this. All right, so this is an older method that wasn't fully developed, so I hadn't fully automated it yet. So we can get rid of this. I think we will start at this point. We clean up excess groups. All of this is like to just get the geo in place, and then there's some joint creation and stuff. We should be able to just continue to use that. The only problem is the rigging was done in here, like in text form. So we're gonna go back to doing it on the skeleton because now that we want to record both the pivot information and the hierarchical relationship, then we need to do it somewhere else. Okay, yeah, we don't need UVs. Step takes forever, and we're not actually using them. So, okay, I think I'll just slide all of this over for now. I'll deal with the. We shouldn't need any of that, but I get if I want to refer back to it. Okay, so drop this guy in here. So we can kind of take that bit of the workflow that we just made. And it didn't give me the skeleton, even though I swear I copied it. Okay, so we shouldn't need this stuff. Alright, we're going to put the skeleton into here and here. So I'll just make one. I'm going to save too, because sometimes it crashes like when you put in null stuff or empty things. So I'm going to connect this skeleton to the for each into, where did it go? That's pretty obnoxious, you saw that? Alt, key, right, there. So we have our skeleton. I like to put like super manual things red, like this is, okay, and then so we have main geo. So in another modeling program, I don't know if this is required. Like, I don't know if it might just be better to rig somewhere else. So like at least for Houdini, this is like kind of what I had to do, but okay, so that's gonna roll through. Let's see what we get at the with the hierarchy. It's like it just like completely dies. So this now is depending on the skeleton to tell it, inform it what of the main geo, I think. Let's see. Swap the order here. So this should combine the two, but it's not going to work without the skeleton. So I think it might make it here, but it's not going to actually be what we want. Yeah, so it grabs that pack geo. Doesn't make it here. Packed parts. Should make it over here, I would expect. So this is here, and yeah, it starts to die out at some point. So it should get erased here. So you'll notice, for myself, I have to say this, like the first input is what gets passed through. And so we don't want that. We were trying to create some custom metadata. and that's why we're putting in the second input. But we do want the original geo to get passed through at this point. And so we're hunting down for this specific thing and then splitting it back out, cleaning it up. And so I think at this point, this is where it gets cut because there's no joint concepts. So once we create the skeleton, then we'll start to see the geo appear down here, which I'll put the blue marker over there for now. And then we'll use this guy as a reference, and hopefully this is going to be not so bad. Okay, never mind. Let's do it over here. It's like kind of hard to see, you know. All right. Okay, here we go. All right, so we got this skeleton guy. So first thing I'm gonna do is just make one. Hit enter, and we're gonna go to modify, press P key. Everything needs to be 0. And this is the root. This root location doesn't matter all that much, I suppose. I'm actually uncertain where we want the root of the ship to be. It feels natural to put it at the bottom. And so that might be what's best, because from an animation perspective, we can't really use this in a spot. Like, that's not going to be useful. I don't know if we ever want to use root, though. So, because we can't really control where the 0 origin is at, like, or we can't control the global pivot, wherever 0 origin is at, that's where root has to be. So we can't move root, but we could move the entire model to match root, and I think that's maybe something we'll do later, because it just kind of makes sense. Like, so anyways, we'll go with that, and then let's see what's next. So I usually start with the hull, which is like the big body of the ship. We're gonna roll through. Guess I need to kind of use this as a reference to keep track. Yeah, J-hull. Yeah, hull isn't mentioned in here, but that's... Okay. Yes, so let's go to create. I go to a different view. Somewhat center. I'm debating whether I need to move the ship now. Or just leave it be. It's probably best, yeah, I think, because whenever we're going into spawning things, probably going to want to drop it down, or we need a consistent route, like something to work with. And because all of these ships are going to be such awkward shapes, like there's not really a better way I can think of. Okay, so let's do a transform here. We'll just set that root position. So translate up, I think, what is that? Y. And can I see you at the same time? Sometimes these points look garbage, like they don't show up very well. Can you show me? There we go, yeah. So that's our 0. And can I click on this without it? It goes nuts. I think that, yeah, right there. Oh, like this view is good right here. That's a good view. So yeah, that's good. If we do 5 even, see how that, yeah, maybe that's okay. 5 even. Okay. And then we'll, actually it kind of bothers me. Okay. So we have that there. Go back to this being on view. Okay. So now I feel at peace there. Okay, so we have this root, and then from here we can create and go to the hull. And so we're only thinking about the big parts that move, anything that's attached to the ship. So it's separate from color concerns. So before we were dividing up the geo, and you can kind of see the different shades of red for the different colors. And so anything that could be animated, even things that, because it's kind of cartoonish, so these metal tanks wouldn't normally move, but we'll probably have them like expand and contract a little bit, a cartoon way. So yeah, anyways, I forgot what's even next, so I gotta go look at this. If this was the first time of me doing it, then I probably wouldn't, but we've already done it, so okay, J-hole, and then the gears. So we can just start with the gears, these ones. But because I've already done this, I have to. Alright, so hopefully that center spot is good. It seems like it's in the middle. Usually I have to click on these and edit them, make sure the rotation's off. And so this will be J hull. And then we're going to try to get this on the gear, which I think it's set to view based. Okay. So hopefully it actually attaches to that surface. So that's handy. Pretty much all of the animations that we've been doing are just hand adjusted to these like circular surfaces, which has mixed success. Sometimes, yeah, I can't really get that, so just a different view, eyeball it, and then the gear will kind of wobble up and down a little bit. It sort of works for the charm, that like the aesthetic, the steampunk aesthetic, but it's definitely just a kind of consequence of the tooling. I did find a way at one point to precisely get the numbers, but it's kind of challenging depending on the shape of the gear and stuff. Like, okay, so then this one I think is, see, I don't even know the name of the geo. Let's see if I can turn on names real quick. And we have to go to a place where the names exist. J Gear 2. Okay, so that's J Gear and this is J Gear 2. Alright. Alright. So this can be kind of obtrusive, but leave it on. So then we're going to go here, and you're going to be J Gear 2. And so if we look down here, it should already have started to extract it in the packed parts. And that didn't work. What the heck? Thought it would have by now. Mismatch of attributes. Yeah, I think it's okay because we don't really need these to have alpha and all that other stuff. I'm surprised that it wouldn't take. I thought for sure it would grab concept. Yeah, see, it's finding things. And then there's there's JPA. So as we're adding this, whoops, J banner, J gear, J gear 2. Okay, so like here's gear 2, and then here's hull. So you'll see PA, hull, and PA gear 2. So that's working up until this point. And we should be packing that in nicely, and it should be showing up back here, which is a little baffling why it's not. I don't understand. Trying to make sure this is operational. Find the joint. Yeah, we're no longer setting path here. That wasn't necessary. Just kind of blast that code. So we're looking to see if you're in the primitive group for each one of these concepts here. It's because we're grabbing this, we're rolling over this list of points here. So it's rolling over this list of strings. JPA gear, and then we're finding this joint, so it should, theoretically, I can change it to a single pass. See if I can kind of look at one of these. Let's find one point to study. So one, two, three, four. Really, any of them should operate. I mean, the banner's kind of small, hard to see. So if we did two, that one's kind of big. It might not find it though. So if we did hull is really big. So 0, it says 5. So 5 or 6 is, I think. What's next to it? Yeah, so either one of these. Oh, okay. So there's an issue here. This has to specifically be named find joint. So it's doing, because in the code, it's specifically calling it find joint. But then this, what is this thing called? The node here, its external name is find joint 1. And this is looking at OP input, which I don't know if it'll let us extract this. But if you were to solve that, it would say find joint 1. And then we're not actually assigning that group. So it's not going to find anything. This is like a pretty obnoxious caveat that I ran into a long time ago. I got too wacky with the automation, and so like, for example, a way to make this better, so you know how it works. A way to make this better would be to not do this, like don't do this OP input because it's not necessary. Like it was because I had half automation, so like we could say found, for example, as a group name, and then we could just name it something that's, because it's an internal name anyways, so we don't really care. And now this can be named whatever the heck we want, and that kind of coupling really sucks. So, all right, saving. That's a good enhancement. Okay, so yeah, that was an older iteration. We've been through a number of iterations. Real quick, the very first version of this, which was I guess like 2 years ago now, maybe, I don't know. All this manual work. So we would had a swan model and then assign color groups so that we could do vertex coloring and IDs and stuff. And then here's every single part because I didn't know how to do loops yet in Houdini. And then on top of that, we would rig it up and then we would attach physics constraints. So each one of these are different physics constraints with like code to specify. So it was a lot of tedium. And so that's why we kind of want to move to Unreal's control rig where we could have a lot more control over it and not have to come back in here and tweak all this stuff. But it produces some pretty cool results. So we can take the principles from this and just move it into the game engine. That's kind of what we're trying to do now. So this is much more simplified, but there's no way to kind of start with this. Like we had to learn what we even needed to begin with. So it took a little while to learn all of that. So okay, so now we can see that it's starting to work. I'm gonna turn off this little debug mode here, let it finish processing. Okay, and then it's coming through like we expect. So yeah, I would expect the whole thing to come through. So that's good. Because before when I was trying to look at it, I was like, I don't understand. A previous iteration of this would not export if there was no joint for it, but now it will export geometry even if there's no joint. So it'll just be attached to root by default, which is the behavior that we wanted. So okay. J-gear 2. So we're going to keep going on the gears. I think there was yeah, just 2. So whole, let's connect to you over here. So click, oh, mistake, Control Z. I just like that, how easy it is to just accidentally tweak it. And we're going to call you, see those rotations? Not good. I don't know if there's a way, I guess this auto-align parent to child thing might be something. I probably don't want this. Okay, so let me see. Zeros. This causes problems. If you do not zero this out, it causes significant issues downstream. I was having issues this morning with the control rig in Unreal, and I just had the idea to come back here and check, and they were not zeroed out, and it creates just wacky, imperceptible issues. Okay, so there's that. Shouldn't go reference back this over and over again until I get this done. J-tanks. So the tanks I'll probably do from the top right here. I'll just put the center about right there. Let me grab the skeleton again. Skeleton. Okay, so we're going to pipe you from J-hole. And let's do it right here. Can I just press P? Is that going to work? Oh, good. Okay. J underscore tanks. Zero out these rotations. See, like, I don't even know what this... Like, just all zeros, please. I don't know. Hopefully that doesn't matter. The local... I don't think it matters. I think it's just these ones up here. So we're going to... J-tanks. Okay. I don't remember if the skeleton has instabilities in Houdini where it crashes. I don't remember. I don't think this is one of the things, but I obsessively save because it's really annoying to have to redo it. J-pipes. So this, J-pipes, I don't even know what that is, really. Let's get a look at it. Okay, you're the big pipes. So yeah, I was going to have those like kind of wobble. So we'll just put that in the center of the ship. That's not going to be doing too much. Yeah, we'll put it right here in the center. So let's go back here. Let's grab J-hole. And let's put you... Actually don't know how it's going to take that. It's like highlighting the line. That's where I want to put it. Wow, okay. Can you just create it? It's kind of annoying. Like I want to put it right here on the line, and it's... See, like wants to move it. So I'm just going to put it off to the side, and then I'll fix it in the data. So come over here, fix the rotation. I think it's this axis here. Nope. Control Z. Oh, that's a bummer. Okay, good. Control Z works. This one. There we go. J-pipes. Usually call them exhaust, but you know, I guess the names are... Alright. And that should do... The cannon was probably next, which is the thing that caused all of this back work. Yeah, J cannon. Alright. Because I just wanted to tilt that thing up and down. I was really excited to see it animate, and it's kind of a bummer. Unreal would not recognize the pivot. Okay, so let's see the cannon. Now, it's kind of long, the geo, but if we think about where it should pivot, I think it should pivot where the gear is, actually. So I'm going to move that gear out of the way a little bit, because it's... The rotation is bad anyways. So I think we were going to translate this way. No. Come on, Control Z. Man, sometimes it just like doesn't work. Okay, there we go. Is it the X dimension that we want to move on? Yeah, okay. I want to just move it out of the way a little bit so it's clearly on this edge. It just feels better. Okay, so for the cannon, it cannot turn left or right, and that's okay. Like, we don't need it to. And that's to our advantage right now for animating. It just needs to move up and down, I think. But the way it needs to move up and down is by rotating, and I think by rotating on this axis. So if we child the cannon to gear 2, when we rotate gear 2, it should also rotate the cannon, which I didn't do in the original hierarchy over here, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I just put it straight to the hole. But now that we're doing an actual skeleton for this thing, I think this is the way we want to do it. So I'm going to grab here. Let me do it in this view. Kind of put a dead center. P, and we're going to say J cannon. And make sure the rotation's zeroed out. Nice. Okay. Translate here can be 0. Should be dead center. The height of it probably doesn't matter. Let me look at the... Yeah, yeah, this, I want it to be the same as the other one. So let me switch this to modify, just Control Z, accidentally moved it. So I'm going to rotate these, but if you don't do child compensate, it'll rotate this too. I want this to be 0. And it's a little annoying that it's auto-aligning. I thought that I turned that off, but trying to turn off all the little automation that they've got. Okay, so what I'm looking for is, this is the Y, I think. Yeah, so we want the same number. So I'm going to grab this, put this in here, just for the appearance of the skeleton. It'll be easier for me to understand. But I don't think it really matters all that much, because if we rotate it, it'll rotate it relative, and I think it's fine. Although, maybe I'm wrong, but it just feels right. For sure. Like if we rotate this, I know it'll move the way it's supposed to. And so this rod here should compensate quite well. So maybe this is the maximum distance it should be out. And so we could set up a nice little constraint. I'm like really excited about this constraint thing in control rig. And so then maybe the cannon could bounce a little bit or wiggle, but it won't go beyond this. And it could go down and stuff. So, all right, that's it for the cannon. What's next? We got to check every single one of these points, but we'll do that later to fix the rotations on them. Make sure they're all zeroed out. Okay, so we got the cannon, the ropes. So the thing about the rope is we're going to need to, I don't know, need is a strong word. I want to do a rope simulation. I don't know how to do that yet in Unreal. In Houdini, we can do a vellum sim. It's pretty fun and cool. So I'm kind of ignoring this thing at the moment. So for now, I guess I'm just gonna like let it. It's gonna look kind of dumb. It's just gonna float and be attached to the hole. So when this cannon moves, it might turn out okay, but it'll be really awesome once we get this rope simulation. So we'll redo that. I think that'll be in-engine decoration stuff. So we're not going to worry about it too much right now. So I think I still need to create a bone for it for later, but that maybe I don't even need to do that. That's kind of where yeah, I think I'm just going to blast it and going back and forth. Let's see, let's just blast it. So let's do actually they call it blast. That's fun. It's vocabulary I actually use. My own color coding system. Red is just manual, blue is output, yellow is debug, and I try not to go too deep with it. And then green is like I've done it, like it's automated. Usually it's code. Yeah, I mean yeah, it's always code. And then things that I eventually want to make an HDA out of. I've only ever made one, and so they take a while to kind of perfect. So we're gonna do pretty much any of the banners. So J banner, and then I think just J rope, and get rid of all that. Okay, so with this, and it looks like it didn't even do it. Group, J banner, J rope, recompute, delete unused groups. Why don't you work? Yeah, you're still there. I don't even know. I don't get it. I don't get why it's not doing it. Because that should have worked. Hold on, J banner. Let me just select like J rope. Oh, did I misspell it? No, that's it. Okay, the rope is gone. So J rope, and then we also want to do J banner star. Just J band. Why isn't it? Does that not, you can't use wildcards here? I thought you could. Interesting. Oh, I forget. It did work. See this? But the problem is I've only grouped in 2 of them. So I'm going to go back up here to the grouping. So in J banner, and then I'm just going to make another one real quick. So we'll do, I'm just going to put the rest of them in J banner 3 for now. Which might be confusing. I'll do J banner rest. So it's just obvious that I didn't put any effort into it. And then we'll say base name, banner 3, and then you can start seeing them erase. So you could do banner 3, banner 4, banner 5. I could also just do banner star, and it should just grab them all. Because we don't care right now anyway. So I really want that back in the engine. So I'm gonna put a effort in to figure that out. But I think now that we're trying to move the workflow to be less Houdini centric and just like I'm still going to work in Houdini, but we don't want to force it. So like I don't want to have to do rope simulations in here. And because once we import the vector animated textures and stuff, well, it just gets more sophisticated and it's harder to change the animations. So if we can actually just do them at runtime, that would be better. So it's something like that, that kind of geometry we could easily create in the engine. And so yeah, anyways, all right, I'm moving on. Not doing the banners. We'll recreate that and we'll do the next thing. Okay, the wings. So this is probably not going to have to be reworked, but there are some changes to the geometry that we plan to make. So, and we haven't done it yet because I want to try and get as far as I can before reworking any geometry. But like the colors, for example, we're not able to color this differently yet. It's all just one solid color because of the way it was collapsed down. So we'll need to split that out. And there might be pieces like this gear, for example, we could animate, but because it's one piece, we can't. And so little things like that. If the feathers were individual objects, then we could set joints on these bits and have them like rotate a little bit, which would be kind of cool. So little things like that. This gear could rotate, but we can't do that just yet. So we can do it with these little attachments and things that are connecting to the wings. So that's what we'll do now. So we're probably gonna just start here. Let's see if I can find. So front link, J-wing front link. And so for the skeleton, we can do a skeleton mirror. So we should just be able to do one side and get the name to cross over. So we just have to get the naming convention right. Let's see. J-wing front link. Which I think is going to be this guy. Yeah. So it's going to be that guy. So the way that we want this to pivot, I mean, it seems like pretty obviously we want it right here. So we'll just put it there. So it's going to be called J-wing front link. That's coming off of the hull. So grab the hull, create. Can I find it? It's sort of hard to find over here, but I can grab it like this. See how it did. Sometimes it does pretty good with the surface grab. Yeah, that's pretty good. So we'll just keep that. It's J-wing front line. Okay. I think I'm out of time today, but I'll have to. All right, I'll come back. For now, let me clear this guy. All right, yeah. So we're gonna chain all of these like this. I think this is the next one. Yeah. So yeah, I'll continue off this point. Save. All right. This took about a week of just trial and error, and finally got it. So the rest of the video is just more rigging. So I figured I could speed through this, and I had a break session anyway, so I could just kind of come back and take care of it. Hopefully this will work for the rigging that we need going forward, but still kind of experimenting. Have to find out one way or the other if this is going to do what we need. One thing that was a significant struggle was the mirror. I messed up on the mirror, and the two things I really needed to get right was on the group for center. It needed to be group type points, and then on the skeleton mirror, I needed to make sure that the attributes being copied over was set to star. And finally, examining the path hierarchy there, making sure it's all working, which it was, and then getting the export set up correctly. So I slowed down the video here for myself to refer to later. This export has been working and should work for the nanite socketing that we plan to do. So yeah, unchecked export in ASCII format. Everything else is pretty much the same. We're using the path attribute, and that should be golden. Then we can get it into Unreal and do the rest in there. Originally, I tried to re-import using the re-import functionality, but it led to some funny hanging bones. So then I decided to just create a new Goose folder and do a re-import. And so here are the settings. I think it's the same that we've been doing. I took out like the creating physics bodies and really just anything we didn't need. Like we don't need materials, stuff with UVs. We absolutely need the vertex stuff, so that's set to replace. We don't want to mess with the scale, so we're going to set the uniform scale to 1. We don't want them to try and convert the scene or convert the unit. We've already done all of that in Houdini. So that's pretty much it. It takes a while to import, so I think I like paused the video, but overall, re-importing it did end up working. All right, after it got imported in again, it finally worked. So like all of you see the PA joints are there, so the pivot anchors are in place, and they are in the right spot, so we can reliably use them for control rig now. And I was thinking even with that little syntax, the little characters PA, we could detect that an anchor or a control rig should be created for that, so that'll be fun. Um, let's see, I think I was switching to skeleton here to try and test the cannon thing because I was really excited about this. Yeah, and so it works. So that's great. Um, we finally got it, so we can move the cannon at the pivot location. And so next will be getting it into control rig and then seeing what we can do from there.